Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Now let's get straight into it. So today, this is going to be part two of the origin of Zodiac signs featuring Mr. Malcolm-Jamal Warner. You may be asking, what is Malcolm-Jamal Warner, the brother from the Cosby Show that just recently passed, what does he have to do with the origin of the Zodiac signs? Well, we have to understand that a lot of these people that we call celebrities, they are worshipers of the astrology or the zodiac signs, and they are really heavy into these things. All right. And again, we don't want to be basic, brothers and sisters. When you think about the zodiac signs, it's not just about the actual signs itself. It's not about being a Pisces or Scorpio and all of this nonsense. It's about what it actually represents. You understand what I'm saying? Like what these things actually mean, and what they actually mean and what they are a direct reference to is the ideologies behind the actual signs themselves. You know what I mean? So when you understand that it's a lot deeper than just astrological signs. Okay. And why these things are even pushed on our people in the first place. You get it? It's a lot deeper than that. And in this case, I believe that Malcolm-Jamal Warner actually was not only an adherent to worship and astrology, but he was sacrificed to a astrological deity, or there's no such thing as really an astrological deity. What I'm more referring to is where people worship these astrological, planets and stars. And I believe he was sacrificed to one, being the Sirius star or the sun god too as well, because of the day that he died was on Sunday, July 20th, which is known as the Heliacal Rising, depending on the calendar that the adherent keeps. The date will change. Sometimes it's July 4th, which we're going to go into that, and then sometimes it's July 20th. And again, the date ranges, but the Heliacal Rising, that was something huge in Kemet, which is ancient Egypt. And in ancient Egypt, the Sirius star would be visible on, I believe, in the eastern part of the world. The Sirius star would be visible for the first time, just annually, at least it would be visible right before sunrise. And it also, they correlated that with the flooding of the Nile River. And the flooding of the Nile River was a huge thing to the Egyptian people. But what does that have to do with today? Because that was an ancient Kemet, right? That was, thousands of years ago. Well, all of the people here that run this society, this new Roman society, which we call America, which is just the fourth beast, these people took all of their practices. When I say practices, meaning all their magic and practices on the left-hand path, they took all of that from the Egyptians and from the other cultures. All right, really the so-called white man, that's what I'm referring to. He really has never had his own set of gods to believe in. He just pretty much has taken everybody else's gods and then somehow, remixed them to his own version. Like the original Zeus was so-called black. Now it's an idol, so I'm not I'm not glorifying Zeus or saying that's a good thing just by the color of his skin. I'm just saying I'm just giving facts. The original Zeus was a so-called black man. And then you had the Greeks take Zeus later on. And then while the so-called whites, the so-called white man was over Rome, he basically took Zeus, remixed it to look like him. But the original Zeus looked like a so-called black man. Get it? And that's pretty much how a lot of the deities work with them. The goddess that represents the Statue of Liberty was originally so-called black, but hey, got remixed. The goddess Libertas. But anyways, the whole point, let's get back to Malcolm-Jamal Warner. Like I said, as I go through this whole presentation here, we're going to see why I believe that he was sacrificed to one of the astrological figures that has been worshipped for millennia. All right, so it says here, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was rescued by bystanders but declared lifeless after being taken to shore in Costa Rica. Malcolm-Jamal Warner died on Sunday, July 20th, after drowning while on a family vacation in Costa Rica. After being rescued, he was given treatment by the Costa Rican Red Cross. So I don't really believe the narrative that was given here about his death. I wasn't there, but it's just based on what I know about these type of events. Okay. Number one, it keeps changing. If you look at many of the different articles that, what happened to Malcolm-Jamal Warner. And by the way, if you're not familiar with Malcolm-Jamal Warner, again, he was Theo Huxtable on the Cosby Show. And he also played in other prominent roles, which we will get his Wikipedia page here in a second. But most of y'all probably recognize his face. Like if you didn't know him, you probably heard about his passing. It was like, dang, man, that was him on the Cosby Show. And, he was on the show with Eddie. And I will say Eddie Murphy. Y'all know what I mean. I'm going to get the wiki page in a second. I know it was Malcolm and Reed show. Also more, tad bit more recently on The Resident. And he was also on Suits. But a lot of y'all would probably recognize his face if you've, watching some type of TV shows here in the past 2 decades or, movies and what have you. But that's who he is, by the way. But when you look at the narrative of how he died, it keeps changing. Like there was an article out there that said that he was rescuing his daughter, or he was trying to save his daughter from drowning. He drowned trying to save her. But then the official release from the Costa Rican, I believe, lifeguards, or not lifeguards, the Coast Guards said that wasn't the case. And he had a quote unquote friend with him that wanted to remain anonymous, that was with him, that survived, that got taken into a rip current. He survived, but then he didn't. But the dude wanted to remain anonymous. Why is that? Why did his friend want to remain anonymous? I'm going to tell you why I believe that too. I believe that this was completely intentional. Whether Malcolm-Jamal Warner knew about it or not, that I'm not 100% sure about, whether he knew this was going to happen or not. But either way, whether he knew it or not, I believe that this was definitely intentional. Okay. And it may sound taboo to some of y'all when you hear someone being sacrificed to a deity or being sacrificed at all. But I encourage you, just read the scriptures and you will see that human sacrifice has been a part of different cultures. All right. A part of their doctrine, a part of their belief system for many years, and it never stopped. What they want you to believe now is that these things are just a quote unquote conspiracy theorists. Just you're just spewing a quote unquote conspiracy theory. No, that's not the case. This is history. Okay, it's not something that can be denied. You can't just shove it off with saying that somebody is just making stuff up when human sacrifice, again, this document is well documented. Okay. And one of the lessons that I did, went into, I think it was just a Wikipedia page where it just showed different examples of human sacrifice. But again, it's always been a part of history. So this is not something taboo. It's not something that, you can't easily explain or show, or it's just like somebody reaching. It's not a reach. This is part of what these people believe in. Just like you believe in the Most High, or if you do believe in the Most High, just how you keep the statute, laws, and commandments. When they have a God that they believe in, they have certain commandments that they have to keep for their God, okay, God or goddess. And one of them normally involves human sacrifice. Okay, their gods demand blood, and real blood. All right, real lives. All right, again, you will see that the children of Israel, they were passing their children to Molech, right? You see that in the book of Leviticus. Now, that right there, that's one of the many examples, but mainly you'll see the children being sacrificed, but it wasn't just children. It was, you know, people of all ranges, and they arranged specific days in correlation to different gods, and those different gods correlate to the different astrological figures, aka the zodiac signs, or what the zodiac signs are in correlation to. Hopefully, this is making sense to somebody, but it may be a lot, or it may sound like I'm just being a quote unquote conspiracy theorist myself. But like I said, I'm gonna show a few things here, but let's just keep going. I'm just setting some foundation before we move forward. All right, so just go ahead, just stick with me. It'll make a little bit more sense. I'm just trying to build a little foundation here. All right. Now, again, this is Malcolm-Jamal Warner. He was 54 years old. A lot of times they specifically target the age too as well. I do believe that this age is also in correlation with the goddess Aphrodite. Okay. But I'm not going to focus too much on that because there were some things that I could correlate to it, but it wasn't strong enough to really present. So I'm going to leave that part alone. But I promise you that the date, or not the date, well, the date too, of course, but the age of when some of these people are sacrificed, or they're quote unquote killed, or they just die, however you want to look at it. I tend to believe the former, but the actual age that they died at is a part of the ritualistic process, okay, of how they worship their gods. But it says Malcolm-Jamal Warner was pulled from the ocean by bystanders, according to authorities in Costa Rica. In a statement obtained by People, the Judicial Investigation Agency said the victim appears to have entered the sea and was apparently swept away by a current. The man was rescued by bystanders and taken to shore, where he received treatment from the Costa Rican Red Cross. However, he was declared lifeless at the scene. Later, a Costa Rican Red Cross spokesperson exclusively told People their paramedics performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation on the patient for more than 20 minutes, but without successful results. So it was announced on Monday, but he had died that day before on Sunday. Okay. So he had died on July 20th, but it didn't really hit the news cycle until that Monday of July 21st of 2025. All right. The source also shared at the time that Warner had drowned while swimming. Authorities have since confirmed that Warner apparently died as a result of asphyxiation by submersion. All right. So, yeah, we can keep going here. Eddie Griffin. That's I almost said Eddie Murphy earlier. Yeah, Eddie Griffin. Y'all remember Eddie Griffin, which, at this point in time, he's being labeled as a quote unquote conspiracy theorist too, by the way. But anyways, let's keep going. Here on the Wikipedia page, Malcolm-Jamal Warner. So it says that Malcolm-Jamal Warner was an American actor, musician, and poet. He rose to prominence for his role as Theodore Huxtable on the NBC sitcom The Cosby Show. So speaking of The Cosby Show, I also found it very odd and a little eerie that The Cosby Show had a total of 201 episodes, and July 20th, the day that he died, was the 201st day of the year. I found that very odd. A lot of these things, again, are planned and lined up. So, that's what makes the sacrifice even more perfect to them, is when you have so many different things line up. Like the fact that it was quote unquote Sunday. I'm saying quote unquote, but it was Sunday, which we know that day is in the Christian doctrine told us to be the Sabbath, because the God that they worship is the sun gods. Okay. But also it lined up exactly with the amount of episodes that the Cosby Show had. I found that very eerie, but either way, which earned him an Emmy, nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series at the 38th Primetime Emmy Awards. He was also known for his roles as Malcolm McGee in the sitcom Malcolm and Eddie. Yeah. Dr. Alex Reed in the sitcom Reed Between the Lines. Julius Rowe in Suits. And Dr. A.J. Austin in the medical drama The Resident. Okay. Now it says in 2015, Warner received a Grammy Award for Best Traditional R&B Performance for the song Jesus Children, alongside Robert Glasper Experiment and La Hathaway. So I was looking up the lyrics of this Jesus Children. I kind of found something a little interesting too as well. When you look up the song that he won a Grammy for, I believe it said, right? Yeah. So let's look at the lyrics of this song. One part of it, at least, it says, yeah, these young souls are soothsayers. And I immediately thought about the scriptures when I saw that. I was like, oh, wow, soothsayer. Let's get Daniel chapter 2 and verse 27. Daniel answered, of course, we can get context, but we'll just keep it to the reason why we're here. Read on. Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. So a soothsayer is someone that believes that they can predict the future based on astrology. All right. Or whatever, they believe that they can do. That's why you see the word is like similar to gaze, gazar. All right, soothsayer, cut out. To determine, determiner, to be cut out. To query, determine, cut out, soothsayer. All right, if we go to the Genius Hebrew Chaldea lexicon, it also says here, to decide, to establish, special use of fate, the deciders, determiners, hence the Chaldee astrologers. That's why he's linked to, the name of this lesson. What is the origin of the zodiac signs? The Chaldee astrologers who, from the position of the stars at the hour of birth, by various arts of computation and divining, determine the fate of individuals. So you see, this is where it gets deep. This is where it becomes idolatry. You can look at the moon and the sun and the stars for wisdom from the standpoint of just knowing information of how to operate according to the dictates of the Most High. But when you start looking at these things to determine the future, when you start looking at these things as a source of knowledge, not acknowledging that it was created from the Most High, that's when it becomes idolatry. That's when you go and clean off. And that's what the quote unquote Chaldean astrologers did. But it's still done today. Okay, this is still divination that's done. Okay, that's what a soothsayer is. You better check the new woman that you're talking to that you met on that app, because she may claim to be a soothsayer. All right. It's just how people get down, and they don't see anything wrong with this. A lot of people do tarot cards and still call themselves Christians, or fool with the tarot cards and call themselves a Christian. There's some of these women out here that call themselves a witch and still think that they quote unquote Christian. And one of the other lessons I did, I told you that one of my cousins, whatever she is, I believe she's like one of my cousins. She literally professes herself to be a witch, and she deals with the different, zodiac signs, astrology, soothsaying, divination, spell, so on and so forth. She proclaims herself to be a witch, but she actually wouldn't tell you that she's against the scriptures either, because they think that these things are okay because it's not taught against. Okay, in the church, they don't tell you not to claim your zodiac sign. So therefore, some people, they go even further, and that's what happens when you dive further into the zodiac signs. When I was going to do part 2 of this lesson, I was going to show like what each sign meant and things like that. But I thought about it. I was like, I want to look at something else when it comes to continuing on in this lesson, because I don't know if that is as profitable as seeing how it applies in real life, like we looking at right now. Well, at least which we're going to get. But he put that lyric in there. That was him speaking, by the way, on this song. His portion of the song, it says spoken outro, Malcolm-Jamal Warner. So the fact that he said that, and he knows what a soothsayer is, because this song is supposed to be about quote unquote Jesus, right? The name of the song is Jesus' Children, according to at least what they named it. But he's talking about soothsaying. These children are soothsayers. These young souls are soothsayers, spiritual players, accelerated graduators of this game called life. Why are these children soothsayers, or these young souls, I should say? Why? Yeah, I think he knew exactly what that meant, what it actually means. And he probably was a partaker or participant of soothsaying himself. Even though he doesn't really look the part to me, to be honest, he doesn't look like it. But you can never go by what people actually look like or what their demeanor is or what they showed on the front end. These people are completely different on the back end, meaning who they actually are when they're not in front of the cameras and they're not on these shows and different things like that. But speaking of, if you watch The Resident, his character was made to call himself a god many times. Okay, if you watch The Resident, his character on there, Dr. A.J. Austin, y'all let me know if you watched The Resident, and you'll know he called himself a god on there many times. I believe somebody said something like, "Oh, thank God," and he was like, "No, thank me." Basically saying, "I'm a god. Thank me. I'm the god that needs to be thanked." So that wasn't the only time either. It was literally multiple times that they had his character say that. And sometimes when they have these characters say different things, like some of the characters that play gay, it's because they're actually gay in real life. They just don't do it. They just not openly gay. Or if they have them play as, someone that believes in different nonsense, like what Dr. A.J. Austin believed in, because I believe he was pretty much an atheist on there, or, what have you. When they have characters play like that, it's because they actually believe that. Speaking of playing gay, that's like Will Smith. His first role was playing as a gay man. I believe, is it 10 degrees of separation? Is it whatever amount of degrees, 6 degrees, 10 degrees, whatever degrees of separation? But he played as a gay boy on there. And we know how Will Smith get down. So, and of course that was his coming out role. He had to do that. But now he doesn't openly do that. But we know that dude, he one of the gayest dudes out there. Anyways, I'm just giving y'all some examples, man. But now let's go back to this date. Let's focus back on this date, July 20th, because that's why it's one of the reasons why we here. All right. There's a lot of things that have went down on this date because it is the Heliacal rising. Like, for example, let's look at the Wikipedia page for O.J. Simpson. All right. It says O.J. Simpson released from prison. On July 31st, 2013, the Nevada Parole Board granted Simpson parole on some convictions, but his imprisonment continued based on the weapons and assault convictions. The board considers Simpson's prior record of criminal convictions and good behavior in prison in coming to the decision. At his parole hearing on July 20th, 2017, the board decided to grant Simpson parole with certain parole conditions such as travel restrictions, non-contact with co-defendants from the robbery, and not drinking excessively. Okay, so he was released from prison on July 20th. Okay, back in 2017, O.J. Simpson was. And as you see here, everything about his life was planned out, and it was according to the numbers. And speaking of the numbers, because I haven't spoken about that yet, the different numerology that we see is oftentimes directly linked back to the worship of these pagan gods, and therefore the worship of the planetary heavenly bodies. Okay, so numbers represent things. All right, they are heavy on numbers. All right, and we are too, to a certain degree, but again, never in a way that they do it. All right. So again, July 20th was a very specific date that they decided to do for Mr. O.J. Simpson, which is now late too as well. We know he's gone here from this plane of existence too as well. But they picked this date on purpose, July 20th. All right. After he had been in prison for exactly 9 years, he gets out on July 20th, or at least has his parole hearing on exactly July 20th. All these things were done on purpose. And speaking of him, just keep in mind, his name is not actual OJ. I believe a lot of people probably never even knew his real name, but he just goes by OJ. But of course, his name is Orenthal. All right, Orenthal James Simpson. And he just went by OJ, or quote unquote the Juice, right? But there's a reason that they even gave him that nickname in the first place. When it comes to 33, all right, 33 in gematria is orange, okay? Orange is the only primary color with the gematria numerology value of 33, which is the highest degree of Freemasonry. This design also features the all-seeing eye. The future is orange. So you see this all-seeing eye here with the 33. So there's a reason that they call him the Juice, like orange juice. And the reason that they they gave him that nickname, OJ, okay, for orange. Orange is 33. That's the highest degree of Freemasonry. A lot of things about his life, this was all done on purpose, okay? When I say on purpose, I mean it was planned out. It was by design. His whole life was planned out for him. All these different events, the whole O.J. Simpson trial, this was all contrived, okay? What you saw before you was a performance. It was planned out. It was for the consumption of the American people, okay, as a play, a real life play. You have to understand that there aren't as many coincidences as you think they are. Okay. A lot of things that you think are coincidences, or you don't pay that much attention to, or things that you see that play out a certain way in the American public, or they're not accidents. They're not coincidences. Okay. Things that are weird that happen like this trial, and how it just captivated at that time. Well, it depends on how old you are. If you 18 to 25, you weren't around at the time of this O.J. Simpson trial. But if you are, old enough to have either, been a young child like myself around that time, or you were old enough to, be an adult at that time, you know how big it was. The O.J. Simpson trial was the talk of the town at that time. It was huge. And I want to do more videos breaking down these different occurrences like O.J. Simpson, but just know all these things are contrived, okay? Let's even talk about this when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, all of this is contrived to me too as well, because him falling so far down in the draft, to me, was all a part of the narrative to captivate the people, to bring more attention to the NFL, to bring more attention to him. Okay, because ever since I saw Deion Sanders do that commercial with Nick Saban, with the GOAT and everything, it kind of let me know how things would go down and why so many people are captivated by the Sanders family. And notice that Shedeur Sanders was the 144th pick. Okay. I don't think that was an accident. And then the Browns did it, which the Browns, their helmet is what? It's orange. The Browns helmet is orange. All right. I don't think any of these things are coincidences. And maybe you do. I know sometimes people hear stuff like this and they like, nah, they were just hating. That's the only reason. 144, that don't mean nothing. I'm just saying, man. I've seen 144 being used before. Like, I never forget, a brother brought this out, how Lisa from Saved by the Bell, her locker number was exactly 144, just to mock us, to let us know that we know, well, not let us know, but basically mocking us to, for those that know, hey, we know who you are. They had one of the only so-called black characters on there, her locker number on Saved by the Bell was 144. Okay. I believe that they let him slide down to the exact 144th pick for a reason. But I'm just giving brothers and sisters examples. And another thing about his hearing is that it was held in Carson City. CC is 33. Our ABC is 3. ABC 3. The letter C represents the number 3. So this is another occurrence of 33. I don't believe any of these things are coincidences. Okay, in Nevada, when he had a parole hearing on July 20th, it was in Carson City, 33. Like Kobe Bryant, he died in Calabasas, California, 33. Okay. Again, you could think I'm tripping with this. It is what it is. I'm just giving you the information. All right. You could take it as you will. But what cannot be disputed is the Heliacal rising. Again, this is an actual well-documented occurrence. Okay. And it did occur on July 20th. Again, depending on the calendar. So let's read Heliacal rising. The Heliacal rising of a star or a planet occurs annually when it becomes visible above the eastern horizon at dawn in a brief moment just before sunrise. Let's get a little bit more specific. Historically, the most important such rising is that of Sirius. What does this remind you of? Siri, the AI tool that's on every iPhone. All right, this is where they got Siri from, because Siri was known to be the goddess of wisdom. Okay, that's why you can ask Siri anything and she'll know an answer. Okay, they did that on purpose. All right, that's where they get a lot of these names from. People just don't realize it. Okay, or like Sirius Radio. We're going to see that in a little bit, the reason why they use the logo that they used. Okay, but anyway, Sirius, which was an important feature of the Egyptian calendar and astronomical development. The rising of the Pleiades heralded the start of the ancient Greek sailing season, a season using celestial navigation, as well as the farming season. Okay, like I said, the Heliacal rising was huge, and Pleiades is actually in the scriptures, if you know, right, in the book of Job. All right, so the rising of the Pleiades is in the scriptures too as well. But I want to come off of the Wikipedia page here for a second. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's go down. Let's go down here. It says here that July 19th, 1000 BC in the Julian calendar is July 10th in the proleptic Gregorian calendar. So around this time, again, is where you'll see the Heliacal rising taking place. Sometimes you'll see anywhere from July 4th to the 6th, and sometimes you'll see anywhere from July 19th to July 21st. Again, depending on the calendar that's being used, okay? Because every day it's kind of like quote unquote Christmas. It's kept on December 25th, but in history, you can see sometimes it was kept at anywhere between December 21st to around the 25th. Okay, so they carefully pick these days depending on astrological occurrences, like the Heliacal rising. Okay, and again, speaking of Christmas, that's why July 25th was picked. It was said to be Nimrod's birthday, right? All right, now let's look at this page. Yeah, this is one of those sketchy kind of looking websites, but it does have the information that we need here. It says the occult meaning behind July 4th, Sirius, the Dog Days, Freemasonry, and the quote unquote Illuminati. Illuminati is that kind of brings more of a conspiracy theory vibe to what actually occurs, but that's what it read here. Anyways, most people recognize July 4th as America's Independence Day. You notice that I've dropped that a few times, July 4th through 6th, but we'll see why I said that. A celebration of fireworks, freedom, and founding fathers. But beneath the surface of patriotic parades lies a much older esoteric truth rooted in the stars Ancient Kemet, and Secret Societies. In this blog, we unveil the hidden metaphysical meanings of July 4th, its connection of the Sirius star, the dog days of summer, the flooding of the Nile, and why 1776 is one of the most powerful occult years in modern history. It says Sirius, the dog star, and Kemetic New Year. Stay with me, y'all. This is all relevant, okay? In ancient Kemet, Egypt, so ancient Kemet is just Egypt, the rising of the Sirius star, aka the heliacal rising of Sirius, also known as Sofdet or the blazing star. Sofdet was an aspect of Isis. Okay, these goddesses here are Sirius or Sofdet and Isis, is just referring to when we read in the scriptures, like in Jeremiah chapter 7. Let's get verse 18 real quick, then we'll cut back to the article. The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead their dough, to make cakes to the queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. That's just the queen of heaven. Isis was known as the queen of heaven. You understand? So it's all connected. Just in case, brothers and sisters don't know what angle I'm coming at here, or just think I'm going deep into Kemet belief systems and things like that. It's all connected. It's all the same deity. Is in the scriptures, okay? Isis was known as the queen of heaven. This is on the ISIS Wikipedia page. You see, Isis is queen of heaven. I can read the whole thing, but this also goes into Mary. All right, when you understand the doctrine of the quote unquote virgin goddess, you also understand that that's exactly where Christ being born of a virgin comes from. Okay, when you understand the deep history of the quote unquote virgin goddess that's been worshipped for thousands of years, you understand that. But either way, that's a whole nother story. I do have a lesson here on the page. I made a playlist about it, about the virgin birth doctrine, essentially. But anyways, Isis, queen of heaven. Okay, it's all talking about the same thing. The queen of heaven that we read in the scriptures. Okay, so the Sirius star is connected to the quote unquote queen of heaven. It's been worshipped for a very long time. All right, and these people today, which borrowed a lot of customs from ancient Egypt. Remember, these same people, they conquered ancient Egypt. Okay, remember that? The time of the Ptolemaic dynasty. A lot of these same people, their forefathers, they conquered Egypt, and once they did, they took on a lot of their customs. You understand? So that's why you see these occurrences still today. That's what they actually believe in. All of the founding fathers were Masons, high-level Masons. You get that? They did not believe in a quote unquote, the Declaration of Independence and freedom and liberty and justice for all and God this and God that. They didn't believe in the Bible at all. Okay. They were all Masons, all the founding fathers. So that's why I be on the quote unquote liberals and stuff like that about the beliefs that they have. But, the people that, call themselves conservative, they believe that, that's why Trump's his slogan, "Make America Great Again," it just means so much on the spiritual side to a lot of people, because they believe that the founding fathers had the best intentions for the country of America. Like they were just these great Christians and they built the country on Christian policies and principles. No, they didn't. The founding fathers were Masons. Okay. They had esoteric beliefs. All right. And that's exactly why you have July 4th being the day of the Declaration of Independence. It's all a lie. But again, that's what they believe in so strongly. That's why Trump has such a cult following. People really believe that we need to get back to, the Christian beliefs, and the liberals are trying to run this country over. No, this country is never pure. It's never, quote unquote, Christian. If we're talking about, what Christianity actually believes in, yeah, you could say that. But if we're talking about The actual beliefs of the Bible, it was never founded on that. Okay. You would have to have the people of the book, the actual Israelites, be in rulership for the world to be ran or this country in particular to be ran by the dictates of the Bible. That's the only way. Anything else, you going off. It don't matter. There's only one people that hold the statute, laws, and commandments. That's it. One people. And if they are not in rulership, if they not the ones in charge, then whatever your doctrine is not of the Bible. It's just that simple. But anyways, back to this. Read on. Who was the healer and mother of Haru? Horus, the sun deity. Remember, he died, meaning Malcolm-Jamal Warner. He died on Sunday, July 20th. Okay. Who was the healer and mother of Haru? Horus, the sun deity. In Kemet, this was one of the most sacred celestial events. Sirius is the brightest star in the night sky and was revered as the soul of goddess Isis, a Set. It shows that our actual sun has a mother, Sirius. You see, these are the things that they believed in, and they still believe in now. That's why they push these zodiac signs on us. I was looking up an athlete or something like that, or one of these actors, and I was looking at their bio, and it was like zodiac sign, Sagittarius. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? Like listing out they major, they actual, birth and hometown, age, and then zodiac sign. Like what that got to do with anything? Anyways, the bringer of divine wisdom and sacred resurrection, a cosmic trigger for the flooding of the Nile, which renewed the land and sustained life and crops. Again, the flooding of the Nile, like it said here, it was the most celestial event. It was a huge thing for the people of Kemet, okay, for their belief system and for the belief system of the people today. All right, it says this heliacal rising, when Sirius first appears on the eastern horizon before sunrise. So that's what the heliacal rising is. When the Sirius star, which is said to be 2 times bigger than the sun, by the way, and when Sirius first appears on the eastern horizon before sunrise, occurred in early July 4th through 6th, marking the Kemetic New Year and initiating the Akat season, the season of flooding, fertility, and rebirth of the Nile River. So you see, this is why they chose July 4th as the Declaration of Independence, and then you still have this to be considered a holiday. They gonna make you keep these these pagan days, pagan high holy days to them at least, which is a quote unquote holiday. They gonna make you keep them one way or another. They just don't tell you exactly what's going on, And July 4th is not normally a day I see brothers bringing out the heliacal rising about. I typically don't see that, but every holiday has some type of either astrological or some type of pagan left-hand path occurrence to it, or connection to it. Every single one of them, including Halloween, of course Christmas. Everybody know that. Most people know that. Quote unquote Valentine's Day is really just the Lupercalia, the ancient Roman festival known as the Lupercalia. But a lot of people don't understand that, even Thanksgiving is linked to the Brumalia. So, that's also another ancient festival. So it's not just about the killing of the natives. They picked that specific day as Thanksgiving too as well. Every quote unquote holiday is linked to some type of pagan occurrence or pagan god worship, or just something to do with some type of left-hand path. All right. Or something to do with the left-hand path. Every one of them. All right. It says the flooding of the Nile was not just a natural event. It was a spiritual resurrection symbolizing the rebirth of Osiris, which is a sun god, divine order, Ma'at, and abundance from the underworld. July 4th, in alignment with Sirius rising, mirrors this ritual. While America celebrates national independence, the cosmos echoes an older revolution, one of cosmic resurrection and the return of divine feminine energy through Isis. Okay. So it says the phrase dog days originates from Sirius, the dog star in the constellation Canis Major, like a canine or what a dog is, right? So that's why they call it the dog days of the summer, because it's said to be when it's the hottest, like it says here. All right, it's said to be the hottest around the Iliac horizon. Okay, the dog days of the summer. And again, this is why you have Sirius XM radio. Their logo is of a dog with a star as an eye. All right, and they let you know what they believe in. They worship the Sirius star, and I guarantee you, at least the founders and probably still the people, whoever, CEO and high level members, they probably know exactly what this logo means, more than likely. Okay, and that's not the only occurrence of or where you see veneration of the Sirius star. This is not the only occurrence, or the only logo that harpens back to that, but this is one of the more notable and the more blatant logos or companies that we know that obviously worships the occurrence of the Sirius star rising too, as well, known as the heliacal rising. And like I showed you on that Wikipedia page, it normally occurs around the 19th to 21st as well, depending on, what calendar that it occurs in. But this is why you have the July 4th celebration. It's not just because of Declaration of Independence. Yes, it happened on that day, but that was by design, because those people, they knew about this. Those people meaning the quote unquote founding fathers. Okay. But that's the main point that I wanted to get. We can keep reading on, but another occurrence that happened on July 20th that also was was definitely not any type of, coincidence or just a manner of, just happenstance, is the quote unquote moon landing. All right. It says Apollo 11 was a space flight conducted from July 16th to 24th, 1969. 69 is as above, so below, by the way, by the United States and launched by NASA. NASA, which is pronounced NASA, but either way, in Hebrew, the word NASA means deceiver, essentially. By the way, I know NASA is an acronym, but I don't believe that to be a coincidence either. Anyways, it says it marked the first time that humans landed on the moon. Commander Neil Armstrong and lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin landed the lunar module Eagle on July 20th, 1969. I don't believe that this was any type of accident either, because, they named this spacecraft Apollo, and it was the 11th one. I believe just on this article, it talks about the number 11. Yeah, Freemasonry understands what the ancients taught, that Sirius is the key to divine consciousness, resurrection, and enlightenment. It's no coincidence that that's the date. 7-4, 7 plus 4 is 11. 11 is a master number in Masonry and associated with the twin pillars, Boaz and Joachim. Okay. Now, again, you can believe that to be a coincidence if you want to, but what can't be disputed is that Apollo is a Greek god, a Greek in a Greco-Roman deity that was worshipped. Okay, that can't be disputed. So, it's very obvious that they picked that name Apollo, obviously on purpose. And there's you have an Artemis program that's going on right now, which is another deity that's found in the scriptures, essentially, not directly by the name, but essentially linked directly to Artemis. And that's pretty known, like, again, the Zeus and all these different deities, Hades, like we've heard these names plenty of times. We just kind of discounted, like, oh, it's just us paying attention to history, and that's what the Romans believed in. And no, they still worship these gods 100%. Okay. And they just put them in our faces and we don't understand that's what's really going on. And again, it's not just about kneeling down to a statue. When we say worship gods or worship a deity like this, it's not about this figure itself right here. It's not about this guy. It's about what this guy represents. You understand? Which is everything contrary to the scriptures. Like I said, as above, so below, or the other doctrine of this world, which is essentially where Nike got their motto from. Okay, just do it comes from the Lima, the Lima religion, which says pretty much do as thou wilt. Okay, and that's the whole of the law or whatever it is. All right, so that's the doctrine of this world, which again just means that you don't have to listen to the Most High. You don't have to keep the statute, laws, and commandments. That's what this deity actually represents. That's what the zodiac signs actually represent. It's not about the sign itself. It's about what the sign represents, right? You don't want to be like everybody else that understands these things on a very basic level, right? You want to really understand what these things mean. You don't want to be like everybody else in the world. You want to have a deeper understanding. Okay. And we know that, most people, they just gonna think zodiac signs equals evil. But again, you have to understand what that really means. You have to scratch deeper than what's on the surface. Okay. It's all about this satanic world and its philosophies and ideologies, not just about an actual, zodiac sign or this God itself. And sorry for flashing y'all so many times. To do understand that this person is new, but all right. So Apollo 11 again also occurred on July 20th. I don't believe that to be any type of coincidence. Okay. I don't. I believe that this was coordinated on purpose for the Heliacal rising, and it was done in 69. And it is very odd that with all this technology that it's been since 1969, since somebody else has been on the moon. Why is that? Do y'all believe that we actually landed on the moon? Let me know in the comments. No, I'm not buying that. But either way, it is what it is. You'll be called a conspiracy theorist if you say that, but it is very odd. You can say whatever you want. You can say, oh, it's expensive and blah, 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 whatever. I just feel that if we were able to go to the moon in 1969, the way that we roll, we would have been back up there again, But again, this is another coordinated event celebrating the quote unquote Heliacal rising. Another thing too is that, by the way, Bruce Lee also died on July 20th too, as well. Just to let you know, Bruce Lee did die on July 20th. So there's many things that occurred on this day. All right. Now, one last connection that I kind of found interesting is how Bill Cosby responded. The way he responded and what he said, I'm pretty sure 99% of people would pay no attention to, but it's just something that I don't know. I found a connection to myself. So let's read here. It says, when these videos pop up, make the page load slow. It says Bill Cosby reacts to Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death. And of course, Bill Cosby played as the father of Theodore or Theo Huxtable, which Theo Huxtable was played by Malcolm-Jamal Warner. And of course, he would know him well, right? But it says Bill Cosby said that when he learned of the death of Malcolm-Jamal Warner, who played his son on The Cosby Show, he spoke to Felicia Rashad, who played the mother. We were embracing each other over the phone about a dearly beloved friend. Malcolm was always embracing relationships with everybody he worked with, Cosby told CBS Weekend News anchor Jerica Duncan in an interview. So Bill Cosby is is out. A lot of y'all probably didn't realize that, but Bill Cosby is out. I believe that to be you know very suspicious about how they were trying to take him down. To was it connected to him trying to own networks, or was it something even deeper on the esoteric side? I'll let you decide, but either way, yeah, it's kind of odd that he was able to get out after all that. But let's go to this part. This is the part I found. I know someone may say I'm reaching here, but it is what it is. Okay, it says a spokesperson for Cosby said in a statement that the 88-year-old former actor, that's Bill Cosby, was devastated when he found out Warner had died. Cosby compared learning the news to when he was told that his son Ennis was killed in 1997, according to spokesperson Andrew Wyatt. It felt the same way, Wyatt said. So I think when he said this, he's basically saying that Malcolm-Jamal Warner and his son went out in similar fashions. That's what I believe. It felt the same way because his son, Ennis Cosby, he was murdered. All right, let's go to the murder of Ennis Cosby. This is the late Ennis Cosby. This was Bill Cosby's son, Ennis William Cosby, the only son of American comedian Bill Cosby, was murdered on January 16, 1997, near Interstate 405 in Los Angeles, California. He was shot in the head by 666-year-old Mikhail Markhasev in a failed robbery attempt. Cosby was 27 years old, which also equals 9. But either way, look, I don't believe that this was just a random robbery. It says a failed robbery attempt, but when you go down here, just here, and you can look into this in other areas. Just saying, when you look into the murder, it's supposed to be a failed robbery attempt, but he still had everything on him. Okay. Although it appeared the robbery was a motive, Cosby was still wearing a Rolex watch and had $60 in his pocket. Anybody that's going to rob you and kill you because of it, you think they're going to let you wear a Rolex? Even if you on the run and you trying to get up out of there, taking off a watch off somebody's hand. I mean, come on, that's going to take highest 10 seconds, but really probably like you get somebody watch off their hand in like 3 to 5 seconds, man. You think he wouldn't take this off and check his pockets? I'm pretty sure. So I don't really buy that this was some type of murder. Kind of like with Michael Jordan's father, which occurred around the same time. I believe what that was. I have to look it up to know for sure, but I believe that was right the summer of '93, right after the first three-peat that the Bulls, Chicago Bulls had. I believe it was around 1993, but they be having these occurrences, these strange occurrences of these quote unquote celebrities, either parents or siblings, or in this case their sons, that just get randomly murdered, or at least it used to happen more. But now they kind of go about it a different way with drownings and car accidents, and suicide is one of their favorite ones to say. I just don't buy it. We know a lot of people in real life that these things happen to. So when these types of murders and suicides and drownings happen, we think it's just happenstance. It's just an accident. But I'm telling you, we don't live the exact same lives as a lot of these people. They're a lot more protected because of their celebrity status. So when you see these things happen, it's way less likely that the average person like a Malcolm-Jamal Warner would be, drowned. All right. That beach in Costa Rica, I looked it up, and it's known to have tumultuous waves and rip currents. I just don't think that he would naturally just go out there, first, without prior knowledge of that, and two, while he's there, would go that deep out to where he can get caught in a rip current. And you probably could get caught in a rip current, not even going pretty deep into the ocean. But I just don't imagine that he would know that information. I just don't. And again, when you look into it, the guy that was with him, his quote unquote friend, I believe, just like in this case, he was killed. That friend that was with him is the one that executed the order. Now, I don't have hard evidence on that. I'm just going based off of historical data. Like this person here, Mikhail Markasev, he really had no motive to kill this man. He had no motive to kill Ennis. He didn't even take off a Rolex watch and $60, which when you raise for inflation, $60 in 97 is a lot more than it is now. That's like $250. You just going to leave that in his pocket. You're just going to leave a Rolex watch, which you could sell for a lot more money, but you were robbing him. I don't believe that. I believe that he was either sacrificed, meaning Ennis Cosby was sacrificed to a planetary deity, or at least planetary deity, meaning who they worship, one of the heavenly bodies that they worship as a deity. I believe he was either sacrificed to that too as well, or this was a sacrifice that Bill Cosby had to make for stardom. That's just what I believe. So, I don't believe in coincidences. All right. I just don't. And then when I see this name here with these both start this alliteration with M's, just understand that a lot of times this is how they let you know what's going on, because the letter M is the 13th letter of the alphabet, and the number 13 is also oftentimes associated with death. Okay. So just to let you know that if you ever been on an airplane, sometimes depending on the actual carrier that you're going with, they will omit the number 13th row altogether. I've literally been on an airplane that I was a smaller child at that time, but I noticed that it skipped from 12 to 14. I'm like, oh, where's the 13 at? It's because it's literally associated with death. The number 13 is. So, you may think something like this is just a coincidence or it's just happenstance, but when all these different coincidences happen at one time, I just start to get suspicious that more things are going on, because I understand the belief system of these people. When I say of these people, of the people that run a society, and also of these quote unquote celebrities that believe in the same thing, which they have to in order to get to the point of fame anyways. Okay. They make these people make them. A lot of them are already on it, but they have to in order to get to that point. If you don't do and perform the rites of the left-hand path, you won't be able to obtain a certain amount of fame in this society. You just have to. Okay. That's just the price of it. This also happened again. This is in the Bible. This is not nothing I'm making up. Why did Satan tell Yahushua or Christ that, he would be the ruler of all those kingdoms if he bowed down to him? That's literally what happens. That was the scriptures giving us an example of the same ritual that is played out before our very eyes for a lot of these quote unquote celebrities. Okay. So the number 13th, quote unquote tarot card is for death. Okay. So when I see that MM like that, and I know that's being 13, I believe that man to be an agent that was sent to carry out that ritual. Okay. Or MK Ultra asset, which if you watch the Manchurian Candidate, then you would understand that. Okay. The Manchurian Candidate was literally all about these MK Ultra assets. I remember, I think I said this on another lesson. I went on Netflix and I literally typed in MK Ultra and the Manchurian Candidate, this film, the 2004 film with, of course, Denzel Washington. This literally popped up. All right. Everyone knows that this film is about MK Ultra, because MK Ultra is not some type of conspiracy theory contrived CIA, theory. It's not some type of conspiracy theory. All right, it's official. Okay, it actually occurred. The only thing that can possibly be debated is if it is still occurring, not if it occurred at all. But I know for a lot of y'all, I'm going into some very wild places right now, but I'm just trying to put it together for you, to help you understand that there's a lot of different things that happens in this society. Okay, a lot of different things that happen in a society that um, that are connected to the worship of the heavenly bodies. Okay, that's completely outlined in the scriptures that we went over in part one. And that was pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I believe I had a little bit more, but I'm about ready to wrap up. That's pretty much it. Let's get Galatians 1 and 4, pretty much. Who gave himself for our sins, of course, talking about Christ, that he might deliver us from this present evil world, according to the will of God and of our Father. So when you think of evil, just remember, evil is not just, racism and police brutality and, homosexuality and different things like that. Of course, those things are evil too. Everything that I mentioned is evil. But there's an even deeper level of wickedness that's occurring right in front of your faces a lot of times. But since we have never been trained to look at these things and don't really care, we think the world is as simple as, oh, these white people are racist and Esau is just a freak and he this and that. Like it's more going on. When Yahweh come back, he come to bring vengeance down, not just on racism, okay, not just on homosexuality. It's a lot more deeper idolatry that's going on right in front of our faces. You understand? All right, 1 John 5 and 19. And we know that we are of God, and the whole world lieth in wickedness. There's a lot of wickedness in this world. All right, a lot of sacrifices that are being made in the form of idolatry to different pagan deities, again, that are connected to the Zodiac signs. So that's why I put all of this together. But that's pretty much it. I could keep going, but I feel like I might have went off on too much of a deep end at the end of that. I don't want to scare a lot of y'all brothers and sisters, but it's just stuff that, I've been made privy to. So I just like to share for those that know. But that's pretty much it. Y'all let me know if you have any questions about this, or, I've been doing a lot of lessons on different things that brothers and sisters been wanting to see. So y'all let me know what y'all would like me to cover next. But that's pretty much it. Lord willing, this was edifying. Until the next time, I bid everyone a mighty shalom.